Hi everyone, as Worlds is drawing near, I'm going to showcase to you Jank. Complete Jank. That's right. I'm going to be playing Sunny LeBeau and I'm up against HB Engineering the Future. This should be a horrible matchup for me. Well, we'll see how it goes. If he scores slowly, I could easily pull out the win. Because Sunny is a late game powerhouse. Now, yes, I've stumbled across amazing music by Adrian von Ziegler. An amazing artist, and he has lots of instrumental music that is very good for if you're studying or for easily listening. Anything, it's very good background music, and I'm going to be using it for this video, as you can tell by the background of this graphic. Now, I'll leave the description to his YouTube channel in the link below. Do support him, and you can also just Google or YouTube his name. It will easily come up. So, back to my deck. The premise of my deck is building around Jack Sinclair and Security Nexus using Au revoir and Rabbit Hole. Rabbit Hole with Security Nexus allows you to basically bypass one ice for free, because you have 6 link and the trace is trace 5. Most corps won't pump the trace unless you are too low on credits. So you will easily get past your first piece of ice, after which you can choose to jack out if you don't wish to continue on with the run. That's completely fine, because you will gain 3 credits from Au revoir from jacking out. You can only do this once a turn, no worries. Jack Sinclair allows you to do this clicklessly, because you can use your Jack Sinclair run to trigger Security Nexus, since it is not a program. Au revoir still triggers during a Jack Sinclair run, because you are not using Au revoir by strict terminology. Using only covers optional abilities such as paid abilities and you may abilities. Au revoir is not a may, it is a mandatory effect, hence it takes place whether it's a Jack Sinclair run or not. Alright, enough talking about the combo. Let's see if I can actually assemble it against HB. My Street Peddler gets me a SMC and 2 Underworld Contacts, which is very painful. If I basically have 2 options here. If I retrieve the SMC, it's almost certainly going to be for Au revoir, because I badly need the money. Or I could retrieve an Underworld Contacts. I would much rather have my Au revoir combo set up ASAP, but after 3 draws, I don't see a second Au revoir. So I think at this point I decide to go for the Underworld Contacts instead. Because if I get 3 Au revoirs very early on, I will be at a huge advantage, because I can hit Archives for 12 credits and install Jack Sinclair for even more money. But it's not gonna happen here, so I decide to go with the Underworld Contacts instead, losing myself the other copy of Underworld Contacts hosted on Street Peddler, and most importantly the SMC. Losing SMC is quite huge, because my opponent is actively rushing out an ABT. He's probably going to churn more agendas out of that remote, which is very bad news for me. Obviously, if he gets to 7 points before I find my breakers, I'm in trouble. I do have a Sherman, which is the Fractor, so I quickly play that while I still have the time, because once he starts slotting agendas into that remote, I need to begin contesting them, and thankfully I see an SMC pretty soonish, so I can use the SMC to grab breakers. That is a worst case scenario. I do not want to grab breakers right now. Ideally, I'll be using the SMC for Au revoir, so I can get the Au revoir engine ticking. Now I know Au revoir is anti-synergistic with a lot of cards, including Dirty Laundry, which I play here on the remote to try to break through. I'm going to bring my breakers out to deal with this ice, except that it's a Turing at strength 5. How annoying is that? I was hoping it was going to be a clickable Bioroid, but it wasn't, so I wasted 2 credits on the Dirty Laundry run. I had to end the run, because I had no way to get through the Turing. Should have done it on my first click, huh? Well, that was very bad for me. I lost my Dirty Laundry, and yeah, my credit pool was knocked back by quite a lot. The good news is I do have an Earthrise ticking now, so I should see my cards more quickly. Here I draw into Au revoir, a second copy of Au revoir, so I immediately play it along with the one in my hand, allowing me to gain 2 Au revoir runs on Archives. So this is a net profit of 2, because it cost me 2 credits to install the Au revoirs, and I gain 4 from it. My opponent, being the good player that he is, immediately reacts by icing up Archives. I do not run Snitch in this deck, because I cannot use Snitch during Jack Sinclair run, so there's no point playing it at all. So I'm just going to Dirty Laundry HQ at this point, seeing an Architect. Ooh, Ooh, that is very nasty. I could pay 2 credits and 5 more to bring out Shrek, and pay 4 credits to break Architect. That's a total of 11 credits. That's all my credits. I do not want to do that, especially since I already have a Shrek in hand. I'd rather just install it straight from my hand. So I say no, you can get the card instead. I don't need it. Going down to 0 credits at this point is a very huge mistake. Firstly, because my au revoir engine cannot run, because he has iced up every server. And more importantly, I really want the money to install Security Nexus right now. So, I do make the Dirty Laundry run. He does not rest Crisium Grid, which is slightly questionable, but I do let Architect fire off, and that could be a huge mistake because I do have a strong feeling that the card in the remote is an agenda. I cannot afford to contest it right now, so I let him have it, and sure enough it is the ABT, which he doesn't fire. So now I'm down 0 to 4. This is very horrible for me. I know he's playing food codes, so one more global food initiative will do it for him. He is going to win the game the moment he installs and advances anything. So at this point, I'm pretty much forced to run his R&D with a stim hack and lock his R&D, make sure he doesn't see any more agendas. So this is why you still really want to play stim hack in Sunny, and I run 3 copies of it for good measure, simply because you really need that early money to get all your breakers set up. I use Security Nexus to trace through the Architect, and I use Sherman to break this wall static. With my remaining stim hack credits, I bring out the decoder because I know I Shrek in hand. Stealing at NAPD, maybe I shouldn't have brought out the decoder after all. The stim hack brains away my Earthrise, which is not so bad because the Shrike remains in my hand. It means that I can install it from my hand when need be. But I'm still very much behind. My opponent is on 3 credits. He spent all his money resing his R&D ice. I attempt to au revoir Archives here, but I fail because he reses an Eli against me. Okay, that's quite annoying. But it isn't over. Because he went down to 0 credits to defend against my au revoir, I can now au revoir his remote instead, gaining 6 credits over 3 clicks. So you might be wondering, why do I even bother playing au revoir when there's so much infection money in Sunny Labo? The problem with the infection money is that you cannot spend your clicks to gain money. Underworld Context is clickless, Daily Cast is clickless, Data Folding is clickless. And it's good. Clickless is good because it means that you don't have to waste time getting money. But the problem is when you really desperately need the money, like I do right now, to get through R&D multiple times, it just isn't there. The money just isn't there. Yeah, there just isn't enough resource-based money. So that's where au revoir comes in. Just now, what you saw happening was that I attempted to au revoir his remote 3 times, but he was able to res an Eli on the remote, so I took back my au revoir and instead played a daily cast. I also played my rabbit hole, which allowed me to fetch another 2 copies from my stack. So this is great. Now I finally have my entire combo going. I can actually begin saying goodbye to him and start pulling away with the credit lead. So here's the deal. I need to use Security Nexus every single turn. Whether it's for generating au revoir money or for getting through a server, I need to use it every single turn. Otherwise, I set up this huge glorified combo for nothing. So you see here, I draw, I play Street Peddler, I draw, I have 1 more click left. I'm going to run a random server. It doesn't matter which server at this point because I'm going to use Nexus on the outermost ice. And I grab my 3rd copy of au revoir. And of course he doesn't boost the trace because it's pointless. So I bypass the wall static and then jack out to gain 3 credits. So for paying nothing, I gain 3 credits. Basically, I can now click for 3 credits per turn. Once per turn, which is pretty decent. Was it worth 6 influence? Well, we'll find out. He made a big mistake here of installing a naked remote that wasn't a Jackson Howard. So I immediately capitalized on that by using au revoir twice, gaining another 6 credits. On my 3rd click, I decide to use my Security Nexus. As I mentioned, you have to use this once per turn. It's too good to not use. You pay 8 credits for it, you better make it back. So I bypass the Architect because at this point I haven't installed the Shrike from my hand. Paying 4 credits for the Sherman on Wall of Static is quite painful, but it's still worth it to see 2 R&D cards. With my last click, au revoir on the remote, and my turn ends. So this deck is very good against horizontal decks, the likes of RP, Nerf Hub, Jinteki PE, Turtlebacks, Gagarin. You usually do very well because there's always naked remotes, from which you can use au revoir. And against matchups like these, where HP has lots of ice and is able to defend every single server, you still can gain 3 credits every turn, as I'm about to do here. Oh no, that's a negative, sorry. On my first click, I ran into his Eve and trashed it. The next click, I ran into his remote because he was dirt poor to trash all the stuff in his remote, including the Ash. Later on, I would realize that this is a mistake. I do not need to trash Ash against him because I have 6 Link. I completely forgot about that. He's not going to boost the Ash trace against me unless I'm dirt poor. So I should have saved my credits and not trash the Ash. Well, anyway, trashing Ash is still a good precaution because I do spend a lot of money on making runs. Here, I do not plan to run R&D this turn, so I'm just going to use au revoir instead and install my security chips. Security chips are basically late game insurance. It allows you to save maybe 4 to 6 credits per run, and that's quite huge when it comes to the late game. With 6 Link, I can basically boost all my breakers to insane levels of strength, meaning that I can break through every single ice for 2 credits apiece, which is very important in saving money. So now it's time to establish R&D lock with 3 R&D accesses, with 2 R&D interfaces that is. It's pretty easy for me to get through, and I begin trashing a lot of stuff. But I leave the Jackson Howard on top. I do not want him to top deck agendas at this point. I know he's looking for the global food initiatives, I must make sure he doesn't get them. Now he continues getting his money going again with the Eve. Thankfully, he hasn't been seeing much money this game, which was pretty good. If he got an early Adonis or Eve not off, I would be in a much poorer position. Instead, he attempted to quickly score his ABTs, but didn't fire them off, which meant that he lost steam, a lot of steam, as I forced him to rest ice over and over again. This bought me enough time to establish this current board state, where I'm now in a dominant position to take a commanding lead. I can make 3 credits a turn, plus 2 from Underworld contacts, plus 2 from daily casts. I can basically lock his R&D very hard, and I'm about to do that right now. With 10 credits, it's definitely time to see 3 more cards of R&D. But first, I install Shrek, followed by a Stim Hack on the remote. I want to spend exactly 9 credits on the Stim Hack, and no better way to spend Stim Hack credits than on trashing Eve. I don't really need money for breaking ice. Between Nexus and my 3 breakers, I can usually get into a server for less than 9 credits. So here, I run R&D, not because I want to get through the server, but because I want to force him to res the outermost Ichi. If he doesn't res it, I get a free au revoir. If he reses it, I use Security Nexus, bypass it, and then still get my au revoir. So this is basically like an expose. Even though I'm not running Snitch, I'm forcing him to res the outermost ice every time he installs an ice, new ice on the server. Because if he doesn't res the ice, I'm gonna get free money. So by forcing the Ichi res, now I know what I'm up against, I can easily do something like this. I can click through the Eli, since I'm running first click, and still only spend 4 credits getting through R&D, seeing 3 cards for the cost of 4 credits. Using Security Nexus to bypass the Architect. That was worth it. So now I'm after 6 points and he's on 4. This is where Sunny gets really out of control. Even though my opponent is definitely solidifying R&D and is getting quite a lot of money still, between his ability and his hedge funds, I am in a commanding position. Mostly because I am able to lock his R&D, and so I'm going to do so. I was expecting the toll booth, it has finally appeared. That is what I'm going to spend my Security Nexus on. I'm still going to click through the Eli, I'm still going to break through all the other ice with my breakers to see Archive, food for the win. So to what extent was my win due to the superior construction of my deck? Well, it was quite a lucky win to be perfectly honest. My opponent was playing HB with Breaker Bay Grid and all the campaigns, but didn't see any campaigns for the former half of the game, and that allowed me to capitalize greatly on the au revoirs. Also, the R&D luck was with me because I basically scored 10 points off R&D in a very short span of time. Granted, I R&D interfaces which made R&D locking easy, but still I wasn't completely locking him. He was getting a couple of cards through, and I just got lucky because I accessed more agendas than I should have, considering that global food is worth less than it actually is. Au revoir is the au revoir money engine it has a lot of upsides when played in Sunny. It is sustainable, as I mentioned earlier. You don't. It is something that you can do if you have spare clicks. Or if you need money, it's better than clicking for credits. It allows you to snowball with multiple copies of it installed. It also allows you to snowball with Jack Sinclair installed. This means that as the game goes on, it only gets more and more powerful. It is also tutorable with SMC. It does compete with the breakers because you rather spend your SMC on breakers than money, but in any case, it increases the consistency of au revoir, meaning that you can easily get 2 or 3 early on, if you so choose to. If you do not need the money because you've drawn a lot of early gambles and 13 laundries, you can use the SMCs for breakers instead. So yeah, and you can use SMC in conjunction with Stim Hack, of course. So basically, there's a lot of redundancy in this deck, ensuring that you will not be too hard up on cash at any point of time during the entire game, which is very important as Sunny because all your things cost so much to install. Not to mention that you don't have to worry about MU because all your cloud breakers take 0 memory. What is this deck weak to? This Sunny deck has a lot of weaknesses. I played against Frost Duty as well earlier on, where he was running a butcher shop style of deck, and that completely wrecked me because I wasn't running Plascrete. I really should swap the Infiltration for Plascrete. Rush decks are also pretty bad because I'm weak to gear checks. If I am forced to install Decoder, Fractor, and Killer just to get through a scoring remote, that takes too much time. By the time I assemble my Breaker Suite, the opponent has probably scored 6 points and is waiting for the last hostile takeover or breaking news. That won't do. So yeah, this deck is really bad against any sort of rush or any sort of flatline. I guess you can counter those weaknesses, making Sunny still a pretty viable runner option, especially considering that she's a neutral runner. I hope to see more interesting builds for the 3 neutral runners as we head into the Wombat cycle, but for now I'll be experimenting with what we have for now. Thanks for watching and happy net running. Goodbye.